Welcome back, Dominators. How are you? Hopefully you're fine. It's time for another episode of DomiNations, and today let's talk about the Shukov trick. So you have probably already read it in the video description, in the video title. So it's about the general, which is getting unlocked by upgrading the castle to stage 8, so in the space age. There we will get but probably the most powerful generals of all. Currently I haven't unlocked Hannibal, so I can't compare them directly, but I'm pretty sure that Shukov is the strongest, if not even, is same strong or equally strong as Hannibal, if not even stronger. We have a range of 7, which is absolutely crazy because all other generals have 5, most have even less. He has splash damage, and he is, I think, the general with the highest amount of damage per second of all other generals. So only to compare, over here we have the stats of Shukov level 1, which has a basic damage of 617. Now if I'm comparing to my other generals, let's for example take Nobunaga. Nobunaga is an offense general, so he has lower hit point stats, but therefore higher DPS, so damage output. And so we are comparing Shukov to one of the damage focused offense generals, and Shukov at level 1 has 613, I think, 617 basic damage, and Nobunaga has 567 damage at stage 12. So he's far higher and nevertheless has a respectful amount of damage less than Shukov. Now, especially if you are already in higher ages, so Space Age or even Cold War Age, and you had some bad luck in the last World Wars and you had to fight players in Space Age, probably Russian players which had Shukov in their defense, you probably already know that Shukov can completely destroy your attack even in the beginning, because he's wiping out other generals very, very easily, but also all main troops do not sustain a lot of hits against him. Now there's one trick to get Shukov out of the race. Here we have a base with 4 generals level 70, so maxed out Space Age generals, and Shukov is also maxed out. Now I'm personally using the infiltrator tactic, so the commando strategy. Probably you are not, but the commando strategy I am using is based off triggering a first wave of spawning defenders very early on, and then trigger them out of the base. And with this strategy, you will also you will not get around triggering also the generals. And if the generals are triggered, also Shukov will come out of the map or to the side of the map to your deception troops, which deflect the interest or the aggro from all of the enemy defenders from your commandos. And there Shukov is mostly a problem because he is also shooting and flying above walls, so he's very fast moving around the map, and this is additional to what I have already mentioned. So the 7's the range of 7, the splash damage, and the high basic damage he has. Now so now there is a pretty interesting fact about Shukov, and there is an issue with Shukov which makes him vulnerable to a specific tactic. Now look what I'm doing in the background in the video. I'm first, when all generals, inclusive Shukov, have been triggered, I'm setting one of my generals and rallying him away. Then afterwards I'm dropping my deception troops, so my mercenaries. But Shukov now is focusing at the first enemy invading unit which has been placed or landed at the map. So he is focusing for the general, Churchill in my case, which I have rallied away, but nevertheless he is not directly and intelligently following him, but instead of this he is more about chasing or moving towards the location the invading unit the general is focusing for has entered the map. So I dropped the general at the very corner of the base and rallied him away. Nevertheless, Shukov is heading towards the corner where the general has been dropped, and then starts to move and turn around without having a specific target. So you have some kind of 2 or 3 seconds where he is approximately without any defense, and this is pretty easy or pretty good to use to have your mercenaries, in my case the heavy tank destroyers, which have suppression attacks, which means that if they are attacking, they will decrease the enemy attack movement, and I think also, but I'm not 100% sure, the enemy damage which is getting to out, or which the enemy puts out. And this is very helpful against Shukov, but also it is necessary, especially against high-level Shukovs, to use your planes. So let's sum up. I have triggered the enemy Shukov. I have got the interest of the enemy Shukov with my first general, which should be high-level. I dropped at the corner. I rallied the general away. You will see it at the top of the screen. But nevertheless, Shukov will head towards the location where the general has been dropped. Afterwards, I dropped my mercenaries, heavy tank destroyers with suppression attack, exactly at the location the general entered the map. And now, when Shukov is arriving, I use a decoy and my planes to fight Shukov. I'm not claiming that this is the perfect method to deal about Shukov, but so you will be, sometimes you will have some losses even in your troops. You can also see he is making very strong damage to my heavy tank destroyers and also destroyed one tank destroyer. But nevertheless, this is still better than losing all of the troops in total. So again, like in some kind of other attacking styles, it is pretty much about the right timing to get the right point of time when Shukov is exposed to the very outer side of the map, and due to the fact that Shukov is pretty fast, he will be there mostly before all other troops arrive, except for armored cars and other fast troops. And then you have to use decoy, especially additional to your planes, to get Shukov early on down, because Shukov is a very huge danger for all troops, not only for generals. And yeah, in total, this is already all about the Shukov trick. I would really love to hear in the comments which experiences you did with the Shukov trick, if you have probably even a better method to solve the problem around Shukov, so around strong enemy generals. And yeah. So probably you have already recognized I entered the space age, and it was really hard pain for me to had the last events running, and in all of these events there were even one or mostly more than one tasks to raid oil, gold and food, and due to the fact that all of my walls have been maxed out, the complete rate of gold and food was completely wasted, so I could not use it. Now with entering the next age, I got new library research, I got even new university research and new opportunities to research or to upgrade in the armory for my troops, and now I'm really thankful to be able to use the gold and food resources again anymore. I'm obviously focusing in the in the library first for the archaeology chapter, which I'm planning to get running in a few minutes ago when I have raided 11 million of food again. I'm going for the air defense chapter to make obviously the air defense stronger, and when I have done the archaeology chapter, I have already accumulated a lot of fragments to get some more artifacts crafted, and to get my Worldwar hall better, and even to get also my multiplayer hall better. In the running Worldwar, I had a pretty sufficient attack, so you can probably see that all of my offense buildings are still upgrading or still Cold War age, so all of my troops are also Cold War age troops, which means, yeah, I'm space age player, but nevertheless my troops are Cold War age. And we have a player over here in the Worldwar which has strong defense coalitions. Enemy number 2, he has or she has a 3 times level 7 defense coalition, and I yeah, intended to attack him without any offense coalition. I have the attack for you because I think it's a pretty solid attack to present, and afterwards I will show you some multiplayer attacks if you're interested. If you're not interested and you were only here for the Shukov trick, thank you for watching, and yeah. I think 1 minute and 27 seconds without troop tactics and offense coalitions against an nearly equal, so Cold War Age max base in defense with 3 times level 7 defense coalition is pretty okay. I would not even say okay, it was good. So I'm very satisfied with this outcome. And now let's go to the multiplayer and farm a little bit. My oil unfortunately is maxed out, so I'm waiting for all of my citizens to return back. My rocket arsenal already has been upgraded, so my next plan will be... What is my next plan? No, the missile silo. Yeah, the generals, to upgrade the generals, because then finally I get also access to Shukov, which I can't wait for. Perfect base, a lot of resources, inactive player. As I can see, probably all traps have been triggered, but we have strong enemy defense buildings. Let's try to get it without even any tactics, but probably we will have to use some. We have a British player, so where's the command post? I can't see it. Here's the command post. Yeah, I've already lost 2 of my commandos, that's not good. But it looks pretty good. No plane losses, 2 commandos. It's a space age player, so I will also go for the quick victory to get a higher it's a quick victory, it's a 5-star bonus. I'm not pretty even sure how it's called, but I will get a higher additional bonus when I get all of the 5 stars. So unfortunately, I have already had the resources to do the. Unfortunately, I have already had enough resources. Sorry, a friend of mine knocked at the door. What I wanted to say is, unfortunately, I already had the resources to do the next archaeology chapter upgrade, but I was unsure whether it was gold or food to use, and After having no more opportunity to raid due to the fact that my resources were maxed out and the archaeology research, the last stage, wasn't finished, I used my food resources to upgrade the bastion, this bastion over here, explicitly to level 5. And afterwards, when the research was done, I recognized that I need food, and I already only had 30 million of gold to upgrade it. That was pretty bad. So now I have to farm again. Here we have another pretty good base. The last event was, I don't know how to say it, but a lot of players actually started again to raid. It was about getting 5 stars at enemy bases. So there was a huge interest in all players who participated in the event to get enemy bases down. And when getting enemy bases down, obviously those bases will get a peace treaty afterwards. Now we have a lot of bases which are inactive, so I think approximately, I'm not pretty sure, but I would say at least 20 up to 30% of all players are currently inactive. So the bases will appear in multiplayer, getting destroyed to a specific point, get their peace treaty, disappear from the matchmaking system, and afterwards appear again if the peace treaty has run out. So periodically they are reappearing, and those bases got raided more frequently during the last event due to the fact that triggered traps and deactivated bunkers and all of the snow generals at the fort make it easier to make those bases or to destroy those bases. So I'm not the only one to prefer those ones, but other players also did. And now afterwards of the event, when again the interest for destroying enemy bases incomplete, so totally, again has reduced. I personally, probably I'm misleaded or misguided, but I personally recognize that again more inactive bases are returning to the matchmaking. While the most highest or the most active point in the middle of the last event when I got online, even at 2100 medals, most of the bases I got matchmake to were not inactive bases, but at least active or even very active bases with generals and like my one also, generals and blessings active, and all traps are armed, and I'm pretty sure there is a high significant connection to the fact that the inactive bases got raided even more, as I described it before. It disappeared from the matchmaking, and only the more active bases of those players who also attack other ones and therefore destroy their own peace treaties appear to players. And I'm now pretty happy that after the event, again also the inactive bases with high amounts of loot in the production buildings such as caravans and farms and oil drill towers again appear in the multiplayer. Unfortunately, I'm sucking to no. Okay, so the arrow's over. So I'm missing of about, I think, 1 million food, but I have enough gold probably to do another upgrade, and I will go for another piece of wall today. Oh, I could have also gone for a gate. That was now a bad decision. So nevertheless, then we will next go for the gate. And now focusing for the 11 million food to get the archaeology chapter started. So here again we have another inactive base, pretty low defenses, and it should be easy to be raided. We have Japanese, so no real threat from the command post. There's the command post. The upgrade times are pretty long lasting. I mean, from Atomic Age on, every player should get pretty used to upgrade times at 14 days or even higher, but it feels like all upgrade times for about 15 or even 16 days nearly, oh my general, no! Fuck. Nearly lasts, it feels like forever to get the upgrades done, and yeah, I'm not pretty sure. Sometimes it feels pretty okay, because if you are more struggling for an update or more struggling to achieve something you are focusing for, it feels more worthy afterwards, so more quality, of higher quality, but also it is making the game a little bit slower and not that fast, so you have to wait a lot of time. So we will end up at 10,800, but get a bonus, so we should end at 11.1 or even 2 million of food, which should be enough. Shukov is not damaged enough. So 11.1 million, now we can start. Perfect, finally. And also we have too many diamonds, so let's get some oil shipments, which we can open later on. So we have over 21 minutes now recorded. Hopefully it was interesting, at least also informative for you. We'll see us soon, and your domination tips.